Welcome to the ThisABILITY Adventures podcast. I'm Andrea Anderson.
And I'm Chip Dodd from Team ThisABILITY. Hey, everybody. This is Chip Dodd, Team ThisABILITY, and my co-host, Andrea Anderson, is with us tonight. We have many extra special guests. We're going to cover a topic that I think is near and dear to all of our hearts, and it's not talked about enough in adventure racing, and that's the topic of friendship and community. And some of these things that adventure racing is excellent at, I believe that has provided me with a lot of friendships and a lot of community, a lot of it's helped me with my own identity and who I am in the world. And luckily, everybody on this call is a little bit of an expert, I think, in this topic. And we're really just going to have an open and authentic discussion about those topics. But first, everybody all of our guests participated in the recent Buff Betty adventure race, which Andrea and I were the race designers, and the race director was Michelle and Liz with Adventure Addicts. It was a phenomenal race, a great day. It was slightly warmer than we were expecting, but everybody seemed to have a good time. So we're going to start off with a little bit about that, the race, just because that's just on our minds. But then we're going to jump into the main topic. So, but I guess let's go ahead and do introductions just to introduce everybody to our listeners. Let's start off with Catherine.
All right. I'm Catherine, also known as Marathon to my FIA friends and Control Freak teammates. Have done a whopping 5 adventure races, with I think the 6-hour one being the longest one. I'm ready for more, but that's about all the experience that I have for adventure racing.
All right, Nicole, how about you next? It's like Brady Bunch. I have all these squares, so I'm just going to kind of go around the loop.
I'm Nicole, aka in our FIA group, I'm Backroad. We go by our nicknames most of the time. I have done Buff Betty last year was my first, and then I did Spring Bloom and then Buff Betty again this year. So those are my only 3 events so far.
Nice. Now it's out of order because 3 of you are on a team and there's an outlier. But since we're doing the Brady Bunch clockwise, Annie, how about you?
Yeah, so I'm Annie. I'm one of the co-hosts of the recently retired Burf Barf podcast, but still active Burf Barf racing team. And I've been racing for, it's weird to say it, I guess, for 5 years now, something like that. And it's weird to be the solo on here because I feel like I'm hardly in view without my best friend in racing, Lauren Kraft, but certainly have the expertise to speak about friendship and adventure racing.
Yeah, I've chased you guys around, and half the time you've got a brand new racers with you, and you're 8 deep, all giggling and laughing. I can hear you from like a click away. I'm like, oh, there's Burt Barf. Let's run over there and film them.
Like to leave an impression.
Yes. And Mariah, how about you?
So my name is Mariah, and I also go by Rogue. My first adventure race was last year. It was the Buff Betty, and then I had another one later in the year, and then Buff Betty again this year. So I am pretty new to the sport.
And so Andrea and I know the answer to this question. Let's talk. How did you guys get involved in adventure racing? Just because I know that this is a really fun story. So.
Well, I think I am responsible for Control Freaks getting into it. Partially responsible. So I was at Pocahontas to mountain bike ride. I don't know. I don't think that was last year. It might have been the year before.
Sorry, I'm going to ask real quick as a new person within your world. What is Pocahontas?
Oh, I'm sorry. That is Pocahontas State Park.
Got it. Beautiful. And you guys are all in what neck of the woods?
Hampton Roads area.
All right.
Virginia.
like Virginia Beach, Chesapeake area.
Got it. Okay. As we're talking about friends in AR, I think it's good to say where you are geographically, because that's a key part of making friends. Somebody might be down the road from you.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
I'm glad
Yeah.
you pointed that out.
Sorry for the interruption.
No, thank you. So I was at Pocahontas and I was getting the bike ready and all, and across the parking lot I saw a big van. And I'm a little bit obsessed with like van life and stuff like that. So it definitely caught my eye. So I was kind of strolling past, kind of trying to take a peek at, because it looked like quite a setup. So it definitely caught my eye. And so luckily, as I was walking by, this nice guy popped out, and somehow we started chatting and probably, asking what I was doing there at the park. And he started telling me what he was there for. And we got on the subject of orienteering, which I had never heard of before. And I think actually, spoiler, it was Chip. And so he was very enthusiastically telling me about, how you run around, you're looking for these control points. And I'm just thinking, oh my gosh, like how cool is that? Like you get to run around, not only run around through the woods, but you also get to bike. And then there can be like water components. And I'm thinking, oh my gosh, this is amazing. Except I can't find my way around using GPS barely. So I was like, wow, this is really cool. And, went off, did my biking that day. And then later on was telling my friend Marathon about it. And I think at the time she had heard of orienteering. She's like, yeah, you can do classes. I'm like, what? So I'm like, this is really cool. Like somebody can teach us how to do this. And then it was out of my awareness. And thankfully, due to great friendships, she did not let it go. Because the next thing I know, we're involved with our local orienteering club. She's the one that started looking up races and got us all involved. And so, just, really great to have friends with these different personalities, because if she hears something and she's interested, she's going to figure it out and find a way to do it. So that's kind of how we all got involved.
So you guys weren't a team prior to this. Like you were friends, but you didn't like come together to participate in a sport competitively.
Well, we do lots of outdoor adventures together, like longer, ultra marathons and those kind of things individually, but together.
So
Okay.
you talk. I think at least a couple of you talked about your FIA group.
Mm-hmm.
Tell us what that is.
So FIA is Females in Action. They're all across the country. I can't remember how many regions we have now, but it's a lot. And it's all women. It's always free, always women, always outside. Peer-led workout group. It's just, ladies volunteer in the community. And I guess FIA Nation kind of has a framework that we have to follow to kind of be under their brand. And it's a super great way to meet other women who are active. And we were all strangers, and we all met in some random parking lot one day a couple years ago, and here we are. And there's stories like ours just all across the country of how FIA in particular has like brought women together and formed relationships that way.
That's really cool. I've never heard of that. So
Yeah.
I haven't either. I'm really glad you brought it up.
Yeah. So we have 5 workouts every week in our little region. But I mean, there are hundreds of workouts happening every single week across the country, and even in the UK now.
And you're in Chesapeake, which is like neighbors with us, which is so crazy. Like we had to go someplace a couple of hours away to actually meet.
Yes. Yeah.
Pocahontas State Park is a couple of hours away for all of us. And yeah, that's pretty cool.
Yeah.
I need to check out FIA.
Yeah. It's FIANation.com or Females in Action. You can look it up.
Awesome.
So Annie, have you heard of that up in your area?
No. So I'm in Columbus, Ohio, and I've heard of November Project, which sounds like it's a similar
Very
setup
similar.
where it's like free workouts, but it's not specific to just females. But that's cool. I know that's a successful structure for getting people involved and making it accessible.
So cool. I guess so. Next up, Andy, like normally you're racing with a group and or taking a whole bunch of newbies with you. Like, how did you end up
Yeah.
doing the Buff Betty solo?
Yeah, so I'm always looking for opportunities to improve my nav. So, going solo is a great way to do that. And man, trying to schedule with other adults over the summer is nearly impossible. So it was like between baseball season and social engagements, it was just me on this one, which honestly, I revel in the opportunity to go solo just because it's just me, and it was really important to me this year to go to both all female races. So I did Unbridled Women 2 weeks before with my mom and my daughter, and then 2 weeks later got to do Buff Betty solo. So a lot of yay women happening this month.
Good.
Yay, women. How did your daughter and your mom like it? Are
They
gonna
liked it.
continue?
Yeah, I'm sure my mom, she keeps saying, you just keep dragging me to all this stuff. And I'm like, where do you think I got tendency from? And my daughter Arbor, this is her third one. And she said the hardest part of the race was having to go slow for grandma. So that's not the worst thing. I should also say we got fourth at Unbridled Women with, I think, having the oldest racer and the youngest racer on the same team. So not too shabby.
That is super cool. So what were your goals for this race?
Goals for this race. So I feel like it's almost a moot point because of how hot it was. Really for me, anytime around adventure racing and navigating, a goal of mine is always to be kind to myself. So my inner headspace has not always been the most warm and welcoming. I think can be kind of rough on myself when I make nav mistakes. So it's a lot of practicing saying things to myself, literally, like, you're doing a good job. You're doing a good job. And sometimes that's my teammates' responsibility when they're with me too. And to have clean nav. I will say though, I think it was was it a high of 93 degrees at Buff Betty?
It was really warm.
It was really warm. So my brain just stops working after about, I don't know, 88. So then my goal just became to mitigate risk as far as like managing myself in the heat and picking navigation choices that were a little simpler to follow, even if they were a little bit longer, just because I'm just not the most sharp in the heat. So those were my goals for the race.
Those are great goals. I admire all of those. I have those as goals sometimes. And for our Control Freaks team, what were your goals for the Buff Betty?
I think our goals for this one was, we have very individual goals. But the way that we decided on doing the 6 hour again is because we came in second place in the 3-person team last year. And so we thought we could come in first this year. We could do it. And then we had also done more orienteering training. So we really wanted to try to hit all the control points, or at least attempt for all of them. The heat was a huge factor for me in particular. We were doing really well on time, and then we hit a section of mountain biking with like an hour and a half left, and I hit a wall of like, I'm gonna just sit out here and chill forever until they make me get off this trail. But we ended up hitting all the control points, which is the first time in a race that we have cleared a course.
Congratulations.
But we came in second, 1 minute behind the first place team. 1 minute. And we caught up with like at the last checkpoint, and I was like, maybe they just missed a point. Maybe we're that close. They didn't miss a point. But we cleared the course, which for us, was phenomenal. And we had the best paddle we've ever had. We have struggled on the paddle in the past, and we did phenomenal on the paddle. So there were a lot of high points, even with 93-degree heat.
And that's got to be motivating where you're like, 1 minute. Like if we just hadn't have speed, I mean, hadn't to stop to get that next, that next bar or whatever, like, oh, that drives me crazy when it's that close. But then the next time it makes you that much more efficient because you realize even though it's 6 hours, it comes down to seconds on
it does. And it's like Annie said, like you also get in that headspace of like, I could have sucked it up for 1 more minute. I could have, like, so many things just spin. Like the first time they told me to take my helmet off and calm down, I could have saved a minute had I listened to that teammate.
We love you.
That's a sign of a great teammate that, loves you no matter what, even though, that 1 minute could have been your fault. I love you anyway. And no one's going to say that 1 minute was any one teammate's fault.
Could have been any of us. 1 minute's not that much time. It could have been anybody.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Okay.
So
go on.
Go ahead, Chip.
So I was thinking before we move on to friendship, so you guys are all very successfully completed the Buff Betty. We do try to keep the podcast educational. So what if there is one aha moment that you learned at the Buff Betty that you could use for the next race or share with people that are thinking about doing a race? Is there any one moment that stands out of like, if we just did this next time, everything's going to be better?
Oh, Chip, I feel like you know what I'm going to say.
Ice bath.
No, there's a section on the paddle. So there was a spot on the 10 hour for the paddle where it absolutely made a ton of sense to park the boat and get out and hit 3 CPs on foot and then get back into your boat. I paddled to every single one of those CPs. I'm not kidding that I think it probably added almost an hour doing that. So I would say the thing that I learned on at Buff Betty and what I feel like I learn at most adventure races is to look for a better way, like to continue to always be looking for a better way. Don't get caught up in the, hey, we're on the paddle section, we got to paddle to everything. Like look to do things a better way. Be clever. There's a lot of room for cleverness in adventure racing. It's part of what makes it really fun. So like me missing the opportunity to make the paddle shorter that way is one of the things that drives me crazy. And it's also one of the things that I think is the most fun to noodle on.
Yeah.
And we designed this course specifically with that in mind. We wanted like 10 different ways you could do this. You could go this way or run across or swim across or paddle or trek. Like we wanted it to be like no team takes the same route. It all comes down to the noodling through the best solution. So yeah, that I think I warned you guys at the beginning. Like we made this challenging for navigators, not being mean, but just there's a lot of options. You really have to think through what is the best way, and it's not the most obvious sometimes.
And I will say I had so much fun swimming on the main trek section on the 10 hour. Like there was a point where I made like a kind of like a parallel error and was like, shoot, I'm on the wrong peninsula. I'm supposed to be over there. And I was like, I got a life jacket. I'm just going to swim over there to correct it. So I even went for an extra dunk.
I was awesome. So glad that people did that because it's just kind of fun. It cooled people off. And I mean, originally we didn't think very many people would. And you gained a lot of time on the first place female. She did not swim, and even though the long run she came out on top, you smoked her on that section.
I know. I was very pleased, and I feel like Kit would say the same thing. Like Kit goes out at races to be competitive. I was trying to be competitive this race, and I was stoked to see Kit's bike there when I got to begin that trek section. And I was stoked to see it still there when I left. Like, yeah, she got me 2 hours on the day, but I get to put that little nugget in my pocket.
Yep.
Well, and I just have to say it, but I'm going to botch it. But I remember from one of your podcasts, you were basically saying that you really liked when other teams race their tits off because honoring the other team. So
Yes, for sure.
I'm
No easy wins.
no easy wins. So you both were racing your tits off. So
Yep.
I don't know if you haven't heard Burf Barf and you're listening, you can go back to all their episodes. I'm so sad that they're not going to be continuing that. But anyway, Mariah, did you have any aha moments?
Well, I think so far, again, I'm pretty new. I was happy with the race that I ran. As Backroad said, we all have our individual goals. And I just wanted to be as quick as I could during the race. Marathon and Backroad tend to be faster than I am. So that's definitely, I'm still working on mentally how that is, being out on a course with friends that are faster than me. They are our primary navigators. Backroads are our primary navigator, with Marathon being our secondary. So that can be mentally and emotionally challenging sometimes. So kind of like Annie had mentioned earlier, my goal going in was to be just a lot of positive self-talk. And I noticed how much differently that race felt, having that, going in with that goal and having that. And just also with that, I wanted to be the best teammate I could be and hopefully not hold them up too much. And us just have fun out there and do my best to contribute anywhere that the opportunity might arise, and focus on that as opposed to, other, areas where I could improve. But so I'm really proud of that. That was a big aha to see how much differently that race felt with the mindset shift. And of course, there's certainly many, many things that I want to improve upon as I continue in the sport.
How about you, Catherine?
For me, I think Rogue and I both know very well how stubborn our teammate Backroad is and how she has one gear, and that is full blast. She does not know how to take a break. And I think for me, I should have stepped up, having that knowledge and knowing that she was never on her own accord going to take a break, give herself a break. Rogue and I should have just teamed up together and said, well, we're not going to move from this spot in the shade for 10 minutes. And she wouldn't have had a choice but to give herself a break. So I think knowing your teammates and then, using the knowledge of their strengths and weaknesses to help you make good decisions for the team when maybe, they can't really make them for themselves in that moment, because she was just determined.
Yeah. And Nicole, what did you have an aha moment?
So I'm going a different direction than they went. Mine is like I have been listening a lot to Sally McRae's podcasts. She is like, in my book, it's one of those women that I'm like, if I could only be. But one of the things that she's been saying a lot is don't stop at your transition areas to eat. Like, you've already got your food with you. You've got what you need. Get to your TA, switch out what you need, and get your water, get whatever, and go. Like, forward is a pace while you're eating. So just keep moving. And I think we did really well on that this time. Like, get your electrolytes out of your bag, mix up your drink really quick from the water cooler, and let's walk and eat. Let's walk and drink that. Let's keep moving toward wherever we need to go. Like, we have to get to the end of that parking lot to get back on a trail anyways. So let's head that way. And I think that saved us time. We didn't hang out for 5-6 minutes in a transition area. We were there for like 2. Get your boat out of the water, throw it up there, take your vest off, and let's go. So I think that was
our fastest transitions.
definitely our fastest transitions. So I think that was a really good like improvement on this also.
Yeah.
Awesome.
Yeah, constant forward motion. That's what I think it was Shane Hagerman that drives that home. He's like, just every minute you're thinking like, just can we do this while we're walking, but don't stop. You just have to keep moving. Yeah. It's a good takeaway. All right. Did we get everybody? Yep. So let's move on. I'm really excited about this. The concept of friendship in an AR, and I think Mariah, you posted a whole bunch of stuff, I think, on your Facebook page, right? Following this race. Let's start off with. Let me back up. Right after, actually, I'm sorry. I listened to this prior to seeing your Facebook post, and it was a interview with Simon Sinek, and he was talking about friendship, and what was really profound to me is he said, basically, you know, there's self-help books, there's business books, there's, you know, athletic books, there's an entire industry about almost everything that you can think about, but there's nobody writing books on friendship, like how to create friendships, how to define friendship, how to, after you have a friendship, how do you maintain it? There's not an industry like there is in self-help or business books or any of that stuff around friendships. Meanwhile, if you look at statistics, like one of the podcasts I listen to is Scott Galloway. He's an NYU professor, and he writes a lot on the concept of friendship. And statistically, males are just, the numbers are terrible on friendships. Like the amount of loneliness right now that is self-reported is on the rise big time, and it's causing all kinds of problems. And it's like, if you have quality friendships, your health outcomes are better, your job satisfaction is better, like everything's better if you have a lot of friendships, you have quality relationships in your life. And meanwhile, our society in general is going downhill on the quality and the number of friendships. So when I saw your post, it really resonated. And I was like, we really should talk about this, because adventure racing, for me at least, and probably you guys, is one of those areas that is, it's a target-rich environment for friendships. So let me start off. We'll start with Mariah. We'll go around the horn on this. But how would you define friendship? Because it's like one minute you meet somebody at a pub, and are they really your friend? And then the next minute you've got somebody that's like you're willing to die for. You will go out of your way for, or you'll drive 4 hours and go pick them up when their car broke down. You're there for them when they have cancer. Friendships has this huge spectrum. Like, how do you define friendship?
So, one, this is something that I am very interested in and fascinated with, and that's where that post came from. Just kind of different sources that I had been looking into, information related to friendships on. And I definitely don't have it figured out. By any means. I think it's such a complex thing and such a very important thing. But I feel like it boils down to, you know, a friendship requires two people that I guess the word agreement is coming to mind, but that there's an agreement there that you're going to be there for that person and that person is going to be there for you. And it's kind of simple, but I think it sums it up. You know, you talked about some of the statistics and things, and I can't remember. I have a lot of information up here and I'm not sure where it all came from, but there is a statistic that I'd read where I think it's 1 in 4 people don't have somebody that they could call if they needed something. And you know, that you talk about loneliness, and you know, that could be for a variety of reasons that you want to call somebody. But you know, if you really needed somebody, if something was going wrong or you had an issue, you know, that's having a support group is fundamental to our well-being, you know, emotionally, mentally, physically. And when you don't have that, it can have such a negative effect.
Absolutely. And I know in adventure racing, they always say, if you want to go fast, go solo. And if you want to go far, go with a team. Because at the end of the day, everybody has a low point and everybody has a high point. And if you're with a team, hopefully everybody's low is not the same. So one person's able to lend a hand to the person in their low, and then that person recovers and they lend a hand. But at the end of the day, because of those friendships, because of that team mentality, you get through life better. It's not just adventure racing, it's really life. So yeah, that totally resonates with me. Catherine, how about you? How would you define friendship?
Oh, this is hard. But I think it's the steadfast relationships with the people that you allow to walk alongside you in your life's journey. They're with you for the highs and the lows, and through the mud and muck, and they still stay with you, and support you. You don't always agree on everything, but I think real friendship, you have to have some struggle in order for it to deepen and develop. And so I think that's kind of why friendships over time get maybe deeper and more meaningful, is because you've gone through hard things together and come out on the other side. So I just think of like the steadfast relationships with the people that journey alongside you.
So they're not just there for you when things are all good, but
right.
when things hit the fan and it's not easy to be a friend, they stay there with you. Yeah.
Yep.
So Nicole, how about you?
Yeah, I mean, I agree. Like I have a different story than the people that I'm in my crew with, which is the beauty of our relationships. I'm a 19-year military wife. Like, we've moved 7 times. So I wasn't able to really define what friendships looked like as an adult until I was here and joined with Fia and this group of women, and found people who are truly there for you, that are willing to, when your husband crashes a motorcycle, they're willing to show up to your door and bring you a jar of pickles and tell you that you're a big deal because you're obsessed with dill pickles. So it really is like just people that are there for you through everything. And like Marathon said, you're not always going to agree, but you also find people that, like Rogue, who you think you don't have things necessarily in common with. Like, we're 2 totally different individuals. And then we go through these really hard races together. And then we sit back and recap these races. And we had the exact same self-deprecating mindset from the get-go. And then you're allowed to open those doors and figure out on a more deep emotional level who that person is and how they relate to you. So that's what I love about doing hard things as a group, is it allows those doors of friendship to be just swung open, because you're so raw and emotional at different points in that it brings all these emotions out, and it brings all of the things that you didn't want to say out loud or you don't tell other people. It opens those doors, which is amazing in itself.
Yeah, that's a really good point. And I guess when I started off, I was talking about the spectrum of friendships. And like, let's just say you're at your local pub, and yeah, you're an acquaintance, you know the person's name, maybe you've had a couple of drinks together, but when shit really hits the fan, this is probably not the person you're saying, I really need you right now, right? Because you're just pub friends, Meanwhile, you've been through a 6-8 hour adventure race or whatever. You're like, I've seen you at your low, you've seen me at my low. Because we went through that together, you feel comfortable sharing, right? Mm-hmm. So it's kind of like again, going back to what Catherine said, like the ups and downs, they're there for you in both. That's important. So Annie, how about you?
Yeah, so for me, I think as I've gotten older, I've learned to see the value of friendships in all the different shapes and sizes. So whether it's the person at the pub that you have a few beers with, or it's the person that you've spent hundreds and thousands of hours running, biking, road tripping to, and been best friends with for 10 years, and seeing the value of each flavor of friendship, whether it's short, long, forever, because the opportunity to be close and vulnerable and share your life with someone might be 30 minutes or it might be years. And I think within adventure racing, it's hard for me not to think about going Burf Barf racing, going to Expedition Ozarks last spring. We had a really rough go of it. We were driving all of our race stuff out in a van. The transmission blew up, moved all of our stuff into a U-Haul to finish the drive out to the race. U-Haul got broken into the night before the race. A bunch of our stuff for the race got stolen. And I would say, I don't know, maybe within 2 hours, we had sourced a replacement for everything from other racers at the event, and also people had donated money to help with the cost of running the U-Haul to replace gear. And these are people like, I think of Doug Reitzart's wife Marcy. Marcy and I know each other, and I wouldn't say that we're like each other's ride or dies. Marcy's my friend. Like, Marcy showed up, by donating money at a time that we had something really terrible and impactful happen to us. And I just think of all of the exchanges, Jameson, racer on Tower Racing, gave me a hug that didn't have to end until I was ready for it to end because of how stressed out I was about this experience. And Jameson's maybe somebody I've spent, I don't know, maybe 2 hours total with. And that dude's my friend. So it's been helpful for me to just kind of eliminate, for me to see the value of all the different spaces and how people show up for you. We keep talking about statistics. So there was a research study I read about how adults when trying to make friends often think the other person that they are trying to befriend likes them less than they do, and the other person tends to think that the other person likes them less than they do. So no wonder we have such a hard time making friends when we all kind of assume that we don't like each other. We all like each other. Like, like Andrea, like, I feel like you and I have gone through this where I'm like, Andrea's cool. I'm sure, I think she likes me. Dude, we like each other, Andrea. We are friends, man.
Seriously, you so get me. But I think a lot of people get all of us. Like you're saying, it's almost like the friendship in a broader perspective is just the community that we're creating all the time. And friendship is so many different levels of deep or deepness or whatever. It's almost too bad we don't have more words for friend, because there's so many different types of friends. And I think about how you have a bullseye, and your closest friends are in the center, and usually your family and people that have to be your friends. And then me too, I've gotten more value out of the broader circles. Like, well, I only see you once in a while, but I still think you're my friend, and I'm going to try to uplift you. And that community feeling, I think, is really present in adventure racing. And I think, I don't know if Chip said it quite this way, but it's like a target rich environment to make friends, because I mean, maybe I have a bias, but I feel like all adventure racers are cool people. Like, they all like to do the things that I like to do, and they've all been through hard things, and they enjoy putting themselves through hard things. And I just think that's really special about our community. Yeah, so I don't know where I was going with that, but I just wanted to interject that yeah, I agree with that, different levels. Oh, I remember too. I feel like that's something that I've actually learned a little bit from Chip, And I might sound like a little bit like I'm stereotyping, but I feel like men's friendships are generally more and less deep. Like I always felt like, if I'm going to have a friend, it has to be a best friend, and I'm going to have like just really, really close group of friends. But I've learned that, yeah, that's nice to have that, but it's also nice to have a lot of people that you might not be as as close to. Like there is value in all of those different levels of friendship. So I don't know. Do you think that's a stereotypical thing to say, Chip?
Yeah. Just like the way you guys are talking, when it comes down to, one of the words is empathy. I think guys are kind of like, I got to puff up your chest and I got to be the best, and you can't show any vulnerability. Meanwhile, somebody like Annie's very willing to, on their podcast, go very deep on stuff that most people would keep private and be vulnerable. And I think that's, once you're vulnerable first, it opens everybody up to more likely be a friend, because it's like everybody's not puffing up their chest saying I'm the best. You're saying, wow, you're going through some shit. I've been through shit before. I'm going to give you that hug. I'm going to share my gear. It like being vulnerable makes you like more human than it does facade. But I think so many guys want to be the facade, and they want to be, I make money, or I've got a nice job, or I'm the best, I'm the fastest. But when things go wrong, I think guys are a little less willing to talk about it. Like you guys were talking about self-talk. I think Mariah, you mentioned like you got this head trash. It's like you're not good enough, you're not fast enough. You're gonna have to go in and do self-talk. And Annie, I think you mentioned it too. Like it's like I don't think guys think like that, even though we probably do it. I know I talk to myself a lot when I'm solo racing. But you guys are more willing to admit it and work with each other on it, because you're willing to address it and look at it and say, this is an issue. I need your help to say, good job, we're going well. And I think guys are less willing to just open up and be vulnerable. And I think maybe that's why guys are having the statistics that are saying that we're more lonely, we have less friends, and the numbers are going in the wrong direction. Like, I mean, the statistics of like 1 in 4 people have no friends. Like, really? Like less than 8 would be bad, but it'd be hard to go through life as a solo person, especially if you don't have a partner, you're single, and you don't have any quality friendship, somebody you could really call if you had a problem. That's a hard way to go through life.
Chip, I'm curious with racing with that. So I've only raced with all women. So I don't have any co-ed team experience. So I'm curious, like in an AR, when you were racing with other men, like I would imagine that the race wearing you down, especially you guys have done so many expedition races. Like I have to imagine that is ground ripe for making friends with other men, because who gives a shit about like how much money you make or what your job is or what your house looks like after 4 days of pooping around each other?
Yeah.
So like do you feel like that you've had that experience where more vulnerability is kind of generated through being around each other through shared trauma?
Yeah, I was kind of talking about men in general outside of adventure racing, just because I'm in a lot of other communities. Okay. For example, I'm in an entrepreneur community, right? I'm a member of Entrepreneurs Organization, and in that scenario, it's a little different than adventure racing, because everybody's a business owner. You don't want to show vulnerability. You want to say my business is having trouble right now. Although inside Entrepreneurs Organization, there's a thing called a forum, which is a tight group of people who meet on a monthly basis. And the idea of that meeting is that it's okay to be vulnerable. You're expected to go vulnerable. Like what you want to do, they call it the 5%. Like you want to share your 5% low and 5% high. I don't want to know the crap in the middle. Oh, my sports team didn't win this month. Like, I don't give a shit about that. Let's talk about the fact your wife's leaving you, or, you had the best month ever. Like, I want to hear your highs and lows. In adventure racing, I don't pick up on the same problem that entrepreneurs have, opening up and being vulnerable. Because in that situation, it's about kind of being strong. In adventure racing, I think And maybe it's just the people that adventure race they already realize that by being vulnerable and asking for help and just being open and honest and authentic is the way for your team to move forward, as opposed to holding back the fact that you're getting blisters, you're getting chafed. I need to stop. I need some help. Can you carry my pack? We've raced with a lot of men and a lot of women, and in the longer races, I think if we could just put everybody statistically speaking in an Excel spreadsheet, the women do really well at the longer races on asking for help and being open and not letting stuff go off the rails. I think men are a little more reluctant to ask for help and say they need a break, or they need to fix their feet, or they need some food, or they need some sleep. And they're more likely to go off the rails. And so I think there are differences in just stereotypical men versus women. I think men could learn a lot from women when it comes down to being vulnerable and taking care of some of that head trash.
I think though too, like most men that we've been on teams with, like they just like assume we're friends, you know, like it's not a question. Like when I'm with a group of girlfriends or women, I think, oh, well, she's my friend and she's not my friend, and I don't know that one, so she must not be my friend. Whereas guys together, like, oh yeah, we're all buddies, you know, like it's really generalizing. But also though, on the teams where a couple of different times, I don't know, but there's one team in particular where I was just the only female, and it's always really important for the whole team to get along. And one of our goals is always to remain friends by the end of the race. But when the guys were getting frustrated with each other, they would call each other dude. So like during that race, I heard so many more dudes than I've heard in so long. I'm like, well, dude, we should go this way, or no, dude, like we need to do that. And of course, we're all getting along, but all of a sudden we're calling each other dude instead of our names or whatever. Anyway, that's just a side note, but it does feel to me a little bit different sometimes, racing with just men, but generally the personality is the only thing any of us actually see after the first, few hours we're together. It's like, you're a girl, you're a guy. We just got to get going and do whatever we can. So
I don't know. I heard a strategy for success in there. Just assume everybody's your friend. Friend,
Yes.
friend, friend.
Yeah.
that's what I'm saying. And I think men are a little bit better at doing that. And yeah, I don't know, maybe not.
So another thing, and we didn't talk about it, but as I was thinking about this and listening to the podcast, it seems like on the spectrum of friends, let's just say you have your running buddy, and you go running or whatever. For somebody to start moving up the spectrum of like kind of acquaintance over to super friend, bestie, whatever you want to call it, it seems like once you put yourself in a situation where you're interacting with them outside of the main area that you met. So one minute I met you at an adventure race, but now we're going to go to dinner. We're going to do something else. I'm going to invite you to my family, or we're going to introduce you to my family. Maybe we go on vacation together. Maybe we go to a concert together. It seems like the minute you add an aspect to your acquaintance outside of the original place that you met, it kind of is moving in that spectrum towards true friendship, to true
Totally
highs
agree.
and lows. Does that make sense?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, because it seems like that's what it did it for me. It's like like for example, Andrea and I, our second race was, Mark Montague at the Soggy Bottom Boys Racing. And, we kind of clicked. I mean, we're all outdoorsy people and all of that. We're racers and he's a race director, but somehow it moved over to outside of that. Let's go to lunch. Let's do a clinic together. Let's, it's like we actually want to hang out outside of adventure racing. We're just, we have more in common than just this one thing. So do you think that's an interesting topic on how to not only make a friend, but also maintain those friendships?
Do you think it's important that the activity is something outside your norm, or is it just time spent together that actually forms a relationship? Does that make sense?
Yeah, I guess what I was getting at is it seems like if I only see somebody, let's say at an orienteering meet, I only see you at orienteering meets, that's it. You can be friendly, you're an acquaintance, but the idea is I think it moves up the scale of like acquaintance, up the scale of super friend, if you are also doing stuff outside of orienteering. Like now you've gone to dinner. Now I kind of start asking, like, what do you do for a living? And tell me more about that. And how was your vacation? Or, it seems like I guess what I'm getting at is like, if let's say somebody comes into orienteering and they're generally lonely and they are trying to develop really quality friendships, taking that step, putting yourself out there to say, hey, I've seen you here a couple times. Are you interested in going to lunch and just having some drinks or whatever? It's just like, let's do something outside of orienteering to take that friendship to the next level. Does that resonate at all with you guys?
Yeah.
Totally.
I think another example of that, like it's not in your home or going to dinner, but our first adventure race, we met Andrea. And so in talking at that race, it was like, oh, well, we live in the same area. Okay, well, we're totally new to this. We know what you've done, and then after that, oh, well, we started listening to the podcast. And then, okay, this is really cool. Well, then Andrea reaches out and here's a group message of like, I'm going to go to the park. I would really like to take a group of women to go mountain bike. Do you guys want to go? Like, it's just an outside of that in particular event. Yes, we all went mountain biking. We talked about it afterwards. We learned lessons. But after that experience, that's building a friendship, because I didn't know her before that event. And then having a connection outside of that. And then now, we all run into each other and it's like, there's more of a connection there than there was. And we haven't been to dinner together necessarily. We went to the brewery. We had beers together. It counts. But but there's that olive branch of like, you are building a friendship and you just met at an adventure race. So I feel like it's such a community of people where when you have things in common, it's like, our jobs are nothing similar. Our lives are not really anything similar, but you can roll off of that because you have a common interest.
I totally agree. I just wanted to add something too that I don't know if you guys would relate to, but I feel like I'm a recovering perfectionist. And so like, I feel like I feel like I have to approach things with all or nothing. Like, I'm going to be your best friend or I'm going to be nothing, which is ridiculous. Like, why would I have to think that way? Like, I can go mountain biking with you guys and I might not see you for another few months and still consider you my friends and still reach out every once in a while. So I don't know. I just feel like I've had to give myself permission to be kind of not a great friend. Like, I can be a good friend, but I can't be a really great friend because I've got kids and I've got a weird schedule and I've got other things, so I don't know. Do any of you guys relate to that, or is that just crazy talk?
I completely understand that.
Yeah.
That's exactly what I feel like Annie said. Like, I've got like legitimate friends that I've known for 2 hours that hand me things out of their gear bag, or I have friends that I've had for 10 years. So it's just different levels of friendships. It doesn't mean they're not friends, but I definitely have friendships that are a completely different level than others.
They're probably friends within your circle that, if you were to approach them like, I have to be all or nothing super best friend, like you're probably going to push them away.
Yeah,
that's
they're not going to want that either.
Yeah. So let that go. You're being a great friend.
By being a kind of crappy friend, I'm being a great friend. Yeah.
No.
And I think kind of to what Chip was saying, if you have somebody that doesn't feel like they have the friendships that they desire, or they feel like they're lacking in that area, Backroad brought up such a perfect example of how Andrea initiated that with us. Something around a common interest and you know, sometimes when you're feeling like you're lacking something, I think you kind of have to go and be that person, if this is making any sense. You know, because I think too, in friendships and with society and social media, we see these things online and we tend to think, well, why doesn't my life look like that? Or why do my friendships not look like that? And, you know, it can be as simple as initiating that gathering, or, you know, stepping outside your comfort zone to create that gathering. And I mean, that meant so much to us as, you know, new AR folks, and, you know, to have somebody with so much experience be willing to say like, hey, I want to hang out with you. And I'm like, you know, we're all like, oh my gosh, she's gonna hang out. Like, you know, and then on
who doesn't want to hang out with you guys? I mean, you have nicknames. Like, that's so cool to have nicknames. Anyway.
yeah, but we really appreciated that. And that was just so cool. I mean, somebody with so much experience that, you know, is just willing to kind of take us on and, you know, start with the very basics and, you know, hang out with us for the afternoon. Just was really great. And, you know, just really a testament to the type of people that you find in AR.
And you bring up a really good point. And it occurred to me, like, you remember when, you know, Arthur the King, the movie came out, and there's watch parties happening all across the United States. And like, I was like, where are the watch parties in our area? Like, why we have not been invited to a watch party? And Andrea and I were like, well, screw it. We'll do our own damn watch party. And we ended up doing two. We did one with my company. We had all of our staff and admins and people with disabilities and all that went to the watch party. And Andrea and I got all kitted up just like an adventure race. Like, we dressed up, we had our backpacks and all our ARWS stuff. And we even got my business partner. We got her a shirt and a bib and a backpack. And so she was acting like she's an adventure racer. And it was like really cool to have, like, you know, people with autism and Down syndrome and cerebral palsy and all that. They're going to this watch party to experience this movie. And of course, for them, it's a dog movie. For us, it's an adventure race movie. And they really had a blast. But then also we took the risk, I guess you would say. Like, we were like, let's do it in Richmond. Like, most adventure racers that were close to us are in Richmond. Let's just put together a watch party and see who shows up. And sure enough, it's like, holy crap, like, all these people come out of the woodwork to come to this, and everybody got dressed up and they have their gaiters on and their compass and their maps. And yeah, it was like 20 or 25 people, but it was like really neat. But it took that and we had to take the risk to say, we're going to put our name out there to do this thing, and maybe nobody shows up, and that would suck. And then you have all the head trashes. I'm not good enough. Nobody likes me. But, you know, we did it and we took the risk. And sure enough, a whole group of people showed up, and there's hugs, and, you know, it was just a lot of fun. And I think that's, again, it gets where you know, it's more of you can see who your true friends are, because you're doing stuff outside of the sport or the activity or whatever. It's like they're willing to come out and be fun. And we went out to a Mexican restaurant afterward and had dinner, and I think that's just it. But it is smart for people who want to build friendships, take that risk to put together the event, offer, hey, let's go out and have meal together. Let's go out mountain biking together, or whatever. Be comfortable with yourself to take that risk, to make the offer. And then, you know, maybe it'll turn into a deeper friendship.
So to that point, though, you did that event, y'all put it out there. And I mean, there were people from all over. I mean, it just so happened that Anna Edwards was driving through the area headed back to Carolina and stopped. So, like, you know, and all it takes is for somebody to say something, hey, we're going to do it.
Mm-hmm.
Yep. I remember she had to drive to Raleigh that night. It's like, we're having margaritas. Like, you know, like, I got to drive. I can only have one, you know. But yeah, that was so cool that Anna was able to come through there. That was super cool. And I think that was, Andrea, that was where my dad was, right? Didn't he come to that one in Richmond?
I think so.
Yeah, my dad and his wife Sheila came in Richmond and got to see all of our buddies all kitted out. Like, that was really cool. So
It made
this
you
gets-
seem normal, right? Like everybody else is doing it. You seem normal. Finally, your dad was like, "You're okay."
Yeah, I don't think he would, even with 20 people around us that do the same thing, would not call us normal. But we're basically crazy, but there's a community of crazy people that enjoy this stuff. So speaking of community, so we're getting deep into this. So let's segue a little bit from friendship over to the concept of community. It's adventure racing has been referred to as a community, and I'm not sure if it's used the same. Like entrepreneurs don't think of it, oh, we're a community of entrepreneurs, but it seems like adventure racers really, maybe it's because what we do is so different than everybody else. Like we like literally sign up, say, I want to do really hard stuff that sucks and I'm going to suffer. Who's with me? And most people are like, oh no, I need to park my car as close as I can to the front door. I want to walk the least as possible. I want to stay in air conditioned. I don't want to have to deal with hot and cold. I would like to be able to drink fluids when I'm thirsty and eat food when I'm hungry and sleep when I'm tired. And adventure racing's like, let's just throw all that out the window and just not do any of that and just suffer for long periods of time together. And if we're going to call this fun and pay thousands of dollars. So I guess one is I'm interested in you guys. What do you think are the characteristics of a community, and kind of how does the adventure racing community play into your lives now that all of you have had whatever, a year or in some situations many years involvement in this? I guess we'll start with Mariah. I'm sorry, we should probably call out names. So Mariah, how about you? Put you on the spot.
Okay, so I'm really bad at answering questions and just, pull all this stuff out of my head. My first thought after you just said that was last year after Buff Betty, our first adventure race as control freaks. And, we've, as Marathon was saying, we've done some hard things together. We've done the multi-hour events and done a lot of mileage, together or paralleling each other. And, going into that first AR, I did not know what was happening. I mean, I did not expect that. Afterwards or during, I'm like, oh my gosh, this is insane. This is really hard. And, and at that point, we're like 2 hours in. I'm like, oh my gosh, we have so many hours of this left. And I feel like that was truly the first, and maybe I just don't remember, but the first event that I've been a part of where I'm like, I don't know if I want to do that again once it was over with. And by the way, so that was also where we learned what type 1, 2, and 3 fun is.
Oh, yeah.
That was new. That was helpful. That was helpful because afterwards, as we're having our discussions, we could kind of categorize. Marathon's usually good at letting us know that we might not think it was fun right then, but we'll come around. And it was just, I just remember thinking like, wow, like I don't know that I want to do this again. And we were, but we were all there together. We had camped, car camped. So, not only were we doing hard things, but then we also had to come back to, like a community shower and rain, where we're all huddling in Backroads truck to try to stay dry. And I don't even remember what your question was.
We're talking about community. It was really good. So I don't know. Can you quickly define type 1, 2, and 3 fun?
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
For the audience that may not have heard that.
Type 1 fun. And is this an adventure racing thing? Is that where
No.
it stems from? Oh, okay. Because
this is a suck fest. Every kind of suck fest there is.
Okay, because that's the first time I had heard it, and it was so perfect. So type 1 fun is actually when it's fun in the moment, like you're doing something and it's fun, an activity. Type 2 is not fun, but that, afterwards you'll be glad that you did it. And please, anybody chime in if I'm not, defining this correctly. Yeah. So type 2, you're in it, it's tough. You're like, this is It's not fun right now, but I'll be glad I did it and I'll be stronger for it and all that. Type 3 is just not fun. And that, like, I wanted it to be type 2, but it was really feeling like type 3. And then afterwards, when we're trying, huddled around this picnic table, trying to heat up our dinner, and I'm just like, this is, I don't know about this. And I don't know, somehow we, that like all went out the window, and it's like, okay, let's do this again. But
But it took like 2 weeks for us to figure it out that it really was a type 3 fun and it wasn't just pure hatred.
Well, you
type
have so
3
many
set
stories.
in 2 weeks later after Marathon convinced us it was really phenomenal and we were just mistaken.
Well, wait, that would be type 2. If at any point in the future it becomes fun again, looking back at it and laughing, going, my God, that sucked, but man, we're glad we did it. High five, that was fun. That's type 2. Type 3 is 2 years later, you're talking about it, you're like, man, we were dumbasses. We almost died. That shit sucked. And like Cathedral Peak, for example, Andrew and I, we climbed this thing out in Yosemite, and it was lightning, and we literally thought we were going to die. Like, that was type 3 fun. We look back on it going, we were idiots. We almost died. We never want to do that again. It was not fun. Everything about it sucked, and it still sucks, and it's been 5 years. That's type 3 fun. Like, don't do that again.
Well,
So,
and then, so as we're talking about it too, you're talking about your small groups, I think it was your entrepreneurial groups, where you guys talk about like the highs and lows. You're like doing that. You're in the moment when you're doing these events with your friends. You're in the moment experiencing those highs and lows together. And not just that, you get to experience it together, but then afterwards you get to talk about it. You get to laugh about it. Hopefully we're not crying about it. Not afterwards anyway, maybe a little bit in the moment, but
I don't know. I think the crying is what makes community.
Yeah.
we just got to keep at it. Maybe we'll do more crying.
If you watch any of our videos on YouTube after races, like I like cry because I'm happy. Like, you can punch me in the face and I can break my leg and I'm not going to cry. But at the end of the race, I am like bawling, like, oh my God, this was the best experience of my life. And if you listen, actually go back to Adventure Addict's website or their Facebook page. I'm videoing Annie as she's coming in. I'm running in with her, and the crowd's going crazy, and she's like flopping on the ground. She made it with like 10 seconds on the clock. I'm trying to talk to the camera, and I'm about to break down. Like, I had to cut it off because I'm getting ready to cry. That's community.
I love that, Chip. That is community.
That's community. Go back and watch it.
I will. You cared about that as much as I did. You cared about me getting into the finish line on time as much as I did. That's community.
It's community.
I'm invested in you. You're invested in me.
Totally. And it's empathy. It's like, I've been where you are. I know what you're going through. I know how hard you're pushing. At this point, I've already had food. I've had a drink. I'm not sweating. Meanwhile, here you are busting your ass, running uphill in the heat. You've got seconds on the clock. And it's like, I've been there. I know exactly what you're feeling. How can I egg you on and get you across that finish line? So the ability, the empathy aspect of, I've been there, I've done that, let me support you, and vice versa. I think that really helps. I don't know. I think it's like a community is a group of like-minded people with similar goals, like, we're all outdoorsy, we're all athletes, we all want to push ourselves. We all want to experience hard stuff. We also want to experience the high fives at the end when we as a team have accomplished something, or we as a community have accomplished something. Even solo racers, you get to the end, there's still the high fives. And again, Annie, like, your boyfriend was laying down next to you, like, immediately, like, you just laid on the ground and he laid on the ground next to you. Like, I'm like you. I'm here with you. I'm supporting you. All of that is so beautiful part of this race. And I don't see that at 5Ks, 10Ks, or mountain bike races. It's just, adventure racing is a different community. And I just think I don't know, for me, it's like, it just resonates with me way more than any other community that I've been in.
Well, and also it has this, like, adventure racing has this unique experience where we're out in the woods doing in these remote places that oftentimes nobody else gets to see. We're doing a race course that no one else will get to do, even if it's, they did the race the year before or the race after. So you have this unique opportunity where when you are together after a race with all the other racers, you all know what everyone else has gone through. You are all experiencing that together. Like, that's a pretty big similarity to share with someone, that you know exactly what they've been doing for the last 10, 12, 24 hours, 5, 10 days.
Yes. And that's a good point. Andrew and I were talking about that on the way here, because we were trying to think through all of this. And it was like when it comes down to, like, we talked about target rich environment, like, when you meet somebody for the first time, like, to go from I don't know you to I feel completely safe with you, I'm ready to sign up for, Expedition Alaska, right? Like, that's a huge jump, right? Most people are just like, I don't know who you are, I may not get along, you might be different politically, you might be different, on all different levels, we just may not get along. But once you realize somebody has gone through the same thing you've gone through, it's like, whoa, okay, at least you've just checked a bunch of boxes. And my best example is Dave Grabner, he's our teammate. We've raced with him now. We did the 50-hour race, Rev 3, and we're now signed up with him to do Expedition Alaska and Ecuador and national championships. Literally, I didn't know him from anybody. He's just a guy who walked up to me at the solo national championships. And he said, dude, I just want to thank you. Like, I love your podcast. I watch your videos. I've learned a lot. Just thank you for putting out your content, yada, yada. Just a racer that comes up. And this happens all the time, right? C2C and all this. Like, people just come up and say, hey, I like your podcast. Thank you so much. And I'm like, okay, that's cool. And then he came in, I think it was like 25 minutes behind me. Like, he was literally, if I made any errors, he would have beat me at that race. Just the simple fact, like, you just did the solo national championships and you came in 20 minutes behind me. It's like all of a sudden a whole bunch of check boxes got clicked. Like, you know how to nav, you know how to suffer, you got through the cold, you know how to mountain bike. And by the end of that, when he drove away, it was like, shit, let's do Alaska together and maybe Ecuador. We went from I don't know you to I'm ready to go on a huge expedition at a lot of expense, just because of some short interactions. And I think that's when it comes down to the community. I'm sorry, this is like a long blah, 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 but like, this doesn't happen in the real world. You don't go to a pub and meet somebody and then
marry them.
And then marry them. Right. Meanwhile, with Dave and I, and even Caitlin, I mean, most of our teammates, Rachel, a lot of these, like, I will race with these people anywhere in the world, even though we don't live nearby each other, just because I know you're a racer. I know you're an expedition racer. I've seen what you've been through, and you've been through the same thing I've been through. And I'm ready to, like, here's my bank account number. Here's my firstborn. I trust you. Let's just go do really big, hard things anywhere in the world. Let's do this. I just don't think that adventure racing is the only community. I think that that's possible.
I think it's a shared suffering. It builds like deep connections. And I don't know, once you suffer with somebody and you get to see, I think, a more deep and like raw version of them, not like, the puffed up version or the, who they're supposed to be every day, but like the real person of who they are when they let all of their, mask and things down. So I think it's a shared suffering is what's unique to the adventure racing community.
And I have to agree with that. I don't think it's the only place to find such a bond with people. And, I have a child with Down syndrome, and I feel like, sometimes you're put in a situation where you're instantly bonded with people that have gone through some similar things. And adventure racing is similar to that, but it becomes part of your identity, like, oh, this is who I am now. And thankfully, we can choose to be an adventure racer and be part of this community. And it's a wonderful community to be a part of, but it's not the only place to find what you're talking about. But that shared empathy and that, the trauma bond, if you've been through something shared, it definitely deepens your connections with people.
It's like a fast track to friendship, I guess. Not the only way, but it's certainly a fast track.
Yeah. Agreed.
I think part of the community aspect of adventure racing, though, is like y'all were saying, First of all, Annie, I've watched that video a few times, and that finish, I feel like we all felt it because we all knew where you had been and we all knew what the clock looked like. And you running in, girl, bless you, because that was an amazing finish.
Thank you.
But it's also like when you get there, I mean, when we got back, we knew other teams that were in the 3-person in our division. And like you sit down and they come up to you and it's like, you know, some of the girls from QBOC, Quantico, came up to us and they're like, so how did you do? So did you hit this point? Did you miss any points? What did it, you know, it was then like strategy. We went through it too. And what points did you hit? What went really well? What didn't go so well? So it's also like just getting to know other people throughout that environment builds connections with people. And I think that's unique about it because there's so much to discuss in regards to the map and the choices you made and how you did and how you felt about what you did. We've done ultras, like we've done several, but and you get to talk about it. You get to talk along the way. You get to talk at the aid station, but there's not as much to discuss. Whereas with adventure racing, there's so many things because everybody has different approaches and thought processes. And that's what I think is cool about it. Like when you guys were able to go back and put overlays on the map and see like, which way did you choose to take? You know, you can verbally talk about that after the race. And I think that's awesome. You know, you choose to go a totally different way. Some chose to swim, some didn't. And that's cool. But that allows you to also build those relationships in talking about it.
The adventure racing community is definitely like very heavy on mentors. It seems like so many, at least what we've experienced, people are willing to just come alongside you and mentor you and encourage you and share whatever knowledge they have. I think that's also something that's not necessarily super common in our society. People that are really just willing to just walk along and share, and they want to see you succeed.
Yeah, exactly right. Like Andrea and I have done the World Championships a few times, and like all the top teams are right there with everybody else. You're having breakfast together, you're getting your maps together. It's like there's no difference. Like it's on very few sports where the tippy top of the sport is mingling around with the mid packers that are just there for their first time. It's super cool. So we're coming up on an hour and a half. I know Annie, you got to jump here in just a second. So I'm going to start with you on the next one. The closing thoughts, I guess.
Sure.
I think we're all very supportive of getting more women into AR. So I guess what would be your advice to women thinking about AR, or any advice to women to in regards to the friendship and the community of AR and the women of AR?
Yeah, I would say grab a friend and show up, or reach out to what will soon be a new friend and ask them to go to a race with you. So there's a lot of women. All of the women that are adventure racing currently are happy. I'm going to go on a limb and say are happy to mentor or take another woman out into an adventure race course because they've been in your position. We've all been a person who's never adventure raced before, making that leap into somebody who has done an adventure race. So I said this often on Burf Barf, but I'll say it here too. Like, this is for you. Like, if you're listening to this, thinking about doing an adventure race, it is not for some other woman. It is for you. This is for you. And you were talking, one of y'all was talking about, like, if you are not seeing the opportunity show up to make friends, become that opportunity. If you're not being asked to do an adventure race as a new female in adventure racing, be the person asking. You know, we create this culture within adventure racing ourselves. Like, the reason why it's easy to make friends within adventure racing is because we've created that culture ourselves. Be what you want to see. And with that, I have to sign off.
That was beautiful.
Thank you for coming.
Thanks,
Yeah,
Annie.
so it was
Awesome to
nice to
see
hang out,
you.
guys.
Thank you.
Congratulations on a great race.
Thank you.
Okay, Mariah, how about you?
I think, yeah, just you got to be brave. You got to be willing to be vulnerable, you know, and just show up and be uncomfortable. You know, especially if you have someone that you know, or can connect with somebody even, you know, through Facebook. The what is it, Women of AR is a great group to jump into and find other folks you know, that are willing to teach. And Selena, who, you know, goes to Buff Betty and will take, you know, she'll create teams if folks want to be on a team. So you know, just seizing those opportunities, even if you don't feel like you're up to it. I am so thankful to have my teammates. I wouldn't be able to be out there if it wasn't for them, because of the navigation piece. I wouldn't be able to get around out there without them. And so I am so thankful that they let me run around the parks chasing after them and trying to keep up and trying not to slow them down, because it's so fun. And it's just such a cool thing to be a part of, and that I wouldn't be able to do without my friends. And I hope as time goes on and maybe I learn more and I'm more comfortable, you know, eventually maybe I'll get to, you know, pay forward, you know, all the time that they've spent, you know, helping me through the courses, and letting me, you know, be on their team. And am I answering the question? Oops. Hold on.
Yeah. Good.
Okay, I forget. I'm just talking and then I forget if I'm even answering the question or not.
No, you're good. Catherine, how about you? Like, what advice would you give to other women in AR, or any general thoughts to women about the friendships and community of the AR?
Like Rogue said, be brave. Just the first step is always the scariest step. You can do it. And like Annie said, it is for you. It is for everybody. I don't have really any like good advice, I don't think, for women necessarily in adventure racing, but for the community that already exists, just never forget like how it felt when you first started. And I don't think that they have. Remember how it felt to be the new person and to not know anything, and just to keep that, you know, like welcoming, mentoring, you know, loving community mentality or whatever. Just, you know, keep fostering that. And I think the sport will continue to grow. I guess that's the main thing.
Yeah. Nicole, how about you?
Yeah. So, I mean, like Rogue said, also, women of AR, like online, they build teams of absolute newbies all the time. And because people joined the Facebook page, there was a team this year that didn't even realize they lived in the same neighborhood. Like, she got on the site, she had no clue that somebody lived a couple blocks from her that already did this, and she thought she was the only person in her area. So she met people that way. Local orienteering clubs, like we have Coastal Virginia Orienteering, which is more based out of more Richmond area.
Yeah.
But they have people who run that will give you so many pointers. Like, just go. You have to just be willing to show up. And it doesn't matter if you're by yourself or if you meet somebody there. Chances are there's somebody that'll let you tag along, that will give you instruction, that will show you how to do it. I went today, there was one outside of Richmond again, and it's just, you run into people there. Some of the girls from Buff Betty were there today, like just brushing up on skills, doing a different course. But again, I had a question, and one of the guys there, no problem, just here's the approach I would take. So it's just stepping out and doing it. There are so many great clubs and so many people who are willing to help and willing to instruct. You just have to ask. Mm-hmm. It's not a closed community. It is not like people are going to shun you for asking questions. It's pretty easy to get answers from people, or people will direct you where to go.
So I only have one thing I'm thinking of to add to what everybody said that is all great advice. But I think one thing that stops some women, including probably myself in my past life, it doesn't matter what you look like. Like, I think I would worry about like, what should I wear? What kind of shoes should I have? Like, I was a little more worried about the stupid stuff that you just don't have to worry about. Just don't think about that stuff. Just show up with what you've got and learn as you go. And yeah, just get out there.
I think a common thing in adventure racing or people that would be attracted to adventure racing is the concept of become comfortable being uncomfortable. Whether it's, it's your first race and it's 6 hours and it's hot and I'm exhausted and all of that. It's just like, we're here to push ourselves. We're here to go further than we thought that we could go. We have a team there to support us. Hopefully you can find a mentor to help you walk through it the first few times. Adventure Racing is a great community that can pull all that together, and orienteering, because it's kind of like a very, very similar community with the map and compass. But also there's a quote I love to talk through, which is, one can't push their limits unless they first find them. Like, everybody talks about pushing your limits, whether it's meeting somebody and saying, hey, let's go out to lunch. Like, that's a little scary because they could say no, or putting on a watch party for Arthur the King, or asking somebody to go to let's do the C2C. It's a 3-day race. It's super scary. It's my first time. What do you say? Let's join together. But the idea is that to push your limits, you have to actually go until you don't think that you can go any further. And then you prove to yourself that you can, especially with a team that's helping you push through that. And so the whole idea of being comfortable, being uncomfortable, and pushing your limits, I think this community helps you do that on so many levels that apply to life outside of adventure racing. And I think that's why I love adventure racing so much, because these are people that are pushing their limits further than 99.9% of society, and these are the people I want to be around. They're athletic. They love the outdoors. They love pushing their limits. I've met very few people in adventure racing that I don't want to be friends with, even though we haven't had an opportunity. I feel like I'm in alignment. So, okay. Any closing thoughts? Again, we're coming up on an hour and a half. Any closing thoughts before we end the podcast? All at once?
I think our closing thought should be that your all's team needs to go big next year.
Thank you.
So Marathon apparently is already in favor of that, and you need to step up to the next length of race for you guys.
If there's anything harder, Marathon is always a yes.
Nice.
Oh, Backroad and Backroad's not far behind either. It doesn't take much. I'm always the one that's like, let's hydrate, let's take a break, and make sure we have our strength to last us. And they're just full speed ahead.
Well, I think you all make a great team, and anytime I see you guys together, I just think, oh, I want to be friends with you guys. Like, you can tell you're a close-knit few ladies, and I'm always impressed by you. And everyone else out there, I guess we ought to wind it up, and thanks for listening. And yeah, hope to see you at the next race. And thanks.
Yep. Thank you, guys.
Thank you all.
Thanks for having us.
We hope you enjoyed this podcast. Please take a moment to leave a rating and a comment.
If you have a question for the next mailbag segment, call 757-354-4795 and leave us a voicemail or a text with your name, city you are calling from, and your question.
To find additional content, including the video versions of these discussions, you can search for ThisABILITY Racing on YouTube, Facebook, and Instagram.
We hope this podcast inspired you to focus on your abilities and plan your next adventure.
See you on the trail.